Okay, so today is October 13th, 2019, and I have arrived here to visit Dad for 10 days or so, and he's agreed to answer some of my questions. I thought it'd be really nice to get him on camera and a little history so that we can share this with the grandkids, future generations. So Dad, we are going to start with your courtship with Marilyn. So can you lead me up to when you met her?
She had a cousin called Denise Hanrahan. There was two boys and two girls, or three girls in that family. They were first cousins, and I was at Denise's 21st.
Do you know what year it was?
God, don't ask me now. 21st birthday party, way back then. It's a number of years ago.
How old were you?
I was 21 at the time,
Okay.
and I reckon she was 15. And they lived at Centennial Park, and I was at the 21st birthday of Denise's, and she came down the stairs in the house. It was a big house. It had a ballroom, which gives you an idea of the size of the house. And that was common in those days, to have a dance room in the house.
Nice.
And anyhow, and I said to Denise, who is that girl coming down the stairs? And Denise, who known me for years, because I'd gone to school with her brothers, and she says, why? And she said, because get your lecturer's eyes off her. She's my first cousin. And I said, well, I could marry her. That was the statement I made at the time.
I could or I would?
I could marry her.
Okay. Okay.
Which I end up doing.
Yes.
I married.
Did you talk that night?
Yes, it was quite a party, and I had been invited to another party, and I had to go because I was going to the other 21st. And this wasn't the priority one I wanted to be at, but I'd met Marilyn, so she was sitting down with a fellow called Mayhem. He was in advertising, and as I used to call them, the chinless wonders she used to go out with. That was my comment.
Sure she liked
What
that.
chinless wonder are you going out with? I don't think she'd ever been spoken to like that in her life, you know what I mean? I think she got a setback. And when I walked over, he said to her, oh, look, tell him I put the next dance and the next dance. And I walked over and she said, I'm sorry. She said, I've got this dance and the next dance. And I said to her, well, I wasn't going to ask you to dance. I was just telling you, I'm going now and I'm just saying goodbye and I'd like to see you again sometime. And I don't think she'd ever been spoken to like that in her life. And I just walked out.
Yeah.
And I left. But remember, she was called Marilyn Gearin.
Oh, yeah.
And Dennis Gearin, her father, died.
Right.
And Julie, 2 years later, after his death, married a fellow called Jack Barrett.
Right. My step-grandfather.
Your step-grandfather.
Yes.
And of course, Laurie Hanrahan was at the party.
Yeah.
That was her first cousin because he was related to Dennis Gearin. When I'm trying to find out who, because sometimes she'd be called Marilyn Barrett, and other times she used to get Marilyn. Well, she used to get Marilyn Gearin because she was Marilyn Gearin at school.
Right.
And that's where she got the nickname Maggie, from Marilyn Ann Gearin.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Marilyn Ann Gearin, Maggie.
Ah.
And all the girlfriends at school call her Maggie. They've always called her Maggie.
Right.
And if you look at the chair down at the beach, it says
Oh, yes.
Maggie on
That,
the chair because she was always called Maggie.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I don't think she'd ever been spoken to like that. Then I couldn't, because I'm trying to find out where I can contact her. So I go to Laurie, and Laurie knows what I'm trying to do, and he's playing cagey because he was a bit of a character. And anyhow.
Yeah. How'd you get a number?
Finally I found out by various means, because she had the two names.
Yeah.
And anyhow, so then I phoned her up.
Yeah.
And she sashe said, I'm booked, you know, I can't go out this Saturday night. No, we're going out with somebody else. I can't do this one. And she, you know, and I just said, listen, kid, I'm taking you out. Make your mind up. You know, I mean, what day can I take you out? And I don't think she'd ever been.
Yeah.
Because they're only kids. I was
Right.
21.
Oh, jeez. Oh,
I didn't realise that she was only 15.
Oh my God.
And when I went down to pick her up, Nursey, who used to look after them,
Yeah.
she said to Marilyn, she said, how old is that fellow out there outside? She said, oh, he's about 17. She said, he's every bit 21.
So from there, did you like constantly date? Like, were you?
I don't think after we went out, and I took her back to Vaucluse Road, and I don't think either of us went out with anybody else after that.
Ah, okay. Okay, so I know that at some point you wanted to marry her.
Well, there was objections.
Right, so tell me about...
The objections go way, way back.
Oh, okay, there's a long history to that.
Long history, family.
Family feuding.
Yes, very
before
much.
Before you were born.
Yes.
Jeez, well, we won't probably go into that. That might be another...
No.
That'll be another segment.
Well,
that'll be interesting.
It was interesting because
Yeah.
it was a big family feud, and it really went back before the First World War.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So didn't they send her away or something? They tried to, like, break up your relationship. She went on a cruise or something?
Yeah, she went to a cruise to Western Australia.
With her...
No, she flew and came back on the boat.
With Auntie Eileen?
With Auntie Eileen, yeah.
And they thought by then she would have forgotten about you?
Yes, well, she didn't.
Okay. And so how old was she when you proposed?
Well, we had objections, so I proposed to her. Like O'Regan down at Rose Bay had instructions.
So who's O'Regan?
Monsignor O'Regan.
Okay, he's a priest.
And he went away, and Father Prunty was there, and Regan said, in no circumstances are you to marry this couple, before he went away.
Okay, so do you know what year that was?
Don't ask me now.
All right. So you and her had decided you were going to get married. She was still living with her parents, though.
Yes.
Okay, and you were going to marry her regardless, but you had to get the approval of the church.
Yes. No. So what happened was, she actually left home before we got married.
Where was she living?
Well, she moved. She stayed the first night with Bobby Jackson's mother, who I went to school with, Bobby and Beatrice Jackson. They went to Rose Bay.
She just left temporarily, like she just left?
Yeah. She was up in Wagga at Catherine Ryan's place, and she was on the phone, and she was upset. I said, just get back here to Sydney. And she came back, and my mother, Megsy, interfered. She got on the phone one day, and Megsy gave her an earful. How dare she upset my lifestyle and everything else. And so
Megsy gave Marilyn an earful?
Yeah, well, that's why they were never friends. You know, they were never friends. And it was a bad period. Anyhow, she went to confession into St Mary's, and that's when she came out. She got tearful in the confession, and Monsignor Meany said, go out and tell your fiancé to wait outside for me.
Oh, so you were engaged at this point?
Yeah.
You'd become engaged?
Yeah, but much to everybody's objections.
Right.
But they couldn't stop that.
Okay, but they could stop you getting actually married?
They could actually do that in those days.
Yes. So you
had to have three Sundays in a row. They read the banns of marriage out before you could get married.
Oh, and if anyone protested?
Yes, they could protest.
So did they ever get to that point of reading the bans out?
No.
Okay.
Because that's when we started this intervention,
So you had an intervention with
by the Cardinal Gilroy.
The Cardinal Gilroy. So Cardinal Gilroy, for those who don't know, was kind of like the leader of the Catholic Church
In Australia.
In Australia.
Mm.
So they're in this big cathedral in Sydney. Mum is going to confession and crying, and the priest must have heard her story. And Dad was sitting outside in the pews, I'm assuming. And so the priest then tells Dad to come. He wants to meet with him, right?
So he said, well, come on, can we go? Of course, in those days, Cardinal Gilroy lived next door, in the house next door to the church, the sacristy there, in the priest sacristy, whatever it is, and he lived there. And anyhow, he went and saw him, and he came back out and he said, the Cardinal knew me from school days because I was secretary of the Old Boys Union.
Okay.
And I had constant contact with him when he'd be coming to the school and functions of the school.
Oh,
So he knew me.
Okay.
And he said, I have no objections. Tell them, there's no objections from me. They can get married whenever they like.
So when did you
And
get
we never had 3 Sundays in a row.
Oh,
And I said, well, I want to be married in the Waverley College Chapel because they just built it and I was the secretary of the union.
So how long after that?
About a couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks. Did her parents?
No, he made a condition that we had to notify both parents that we were getting married. But I could be married and he could be married in Waverley Chapel. And Kieran, the Franciscan priest called Father Kieran O'Connell, he married us.
And did her parents come to the wedding?
No, they didn't.
Did your parents go to the wedding?
Yes, eventually.
Oh, they weren't happy either?
They weren't happy. There they are, there, over there, in that picture over there. That's the wedding day.
Okay. So, hold that up.
What?
Let's see. So this is
That's
the
meant-
wedding day.
Yeah.
This is Dad's mother, stepfather, Mum and Dad. And this is them. And Mum, how did she get her wedding dress?
Don't ask me. She got that in 24 hours.
Jeez. Did you give her a ring?
Yes.
And then were there people at
And then the first engagement ring, it went down the sink. She dropped it down the sink in Manala Road, Point Piper.
Oh, you'd given her the engagement ring, obviously.
Yeah. So I had to buy her a second engagement ring.
Oh, jeez. No wonder Megsy was...
Huh?
No wonder Megsy was up in arms.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I had to go to Harry Drake, the jeweller, who was a mate of mine. And I said, she's lost it. He said, she can't. So I had to buy a second engagement ring.
Oh, my God. That's crazy. So who was your best man?
Peter Tansey.
And did she have
We had a bride, matron of honour, Pat Pritchard.
did any of her siblings go to the
No, Louis Moss.
wedding?
He was an old boy at Waverley. I knew him well. She stayed, so with Jackson, she stayed with Mrs. Tansey, and then Louis Moss brought her down the aisle to the church.
Oh my God! And none of her were any of her friends there?
Yeah, Laurie Hanrahan, he sat at the back of the church. He came to see his cousin married. That was all. And then Pat Pritchard, that was Arden's wife, said you to come up here. I went up there. She said, you're having a reception here at our place.
Oh, so you had a reception.
At Pat's place. And there was something like just under 100 people there.
Oh.
You couldn't move in the house.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't know about that.
And a fellow called John Toohey, who I went to school with, his wedding present to us, they own a chain of motels around New South Wales.
Uh-huh.
And then they had one up in the Gold Coast, and he
Yeah.
said, here's your wedding, your accommodation for your
my God.
honeymoon.
So you took a car trip?
Yeah, car trip, and got in the old Humber Hawk.
What was your first car?
A Humber Hawk.
Humber
It
Hawk.
was a great big monstrosity.
And where did you move to? Where was your first...
Now we moved to Lismore.
Oh, you went straight up to Lismore.
Yeah.
Okay,
Stay
so
with
now we'll go off a little bit. So, what was your first job? Well, so Kim was born in Lismore. I know
Yeah.
that. So, what was your first job?
my first job on leaving school. I worked for a real estate office,
Okay.
H.W. Horning and Company. It
Okay.
was owned by Moore Brothers, who were real estate agents in
Okay.
Baltimore.
And that was in Sydney?
Sydney, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so, and then you went from, where did you go then?
Well, no,
Then,
well,
when you married Mum, what were you doing? What was your job?
I'd left Greater Union.
What were
where
you doing at Greater Union?
I was manager of a company called Bush Simpson, which is a television company from Bush of England. That was Norman Ridge's company. Because Keith Morman, I was great mates with. He was company secretary of the company. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so what took you up to Lismore then? So
Because
you got married and moved straight up to Lismore?
No, we stopped at Lismore on the way through on a honeymoon.
Oh, yeah. And then what?
And then they suggested that I move up to Lismore. He had old Wally Fitzhugh, he had a manufacturer's agency business, and he said, well, why don't you come and work for me?
Ah.
So I did that.
Got out of Sydney, away from all the...
Yeah.
Was there a lot of family...
No, the family were not very happy about it all.
All right. And then Kim was born
In Lismore.
in Lismore.
Yeah.
And
Dr. Roberts, unfortunately, he was Bob McInerney's protege.
Okay, he was the doctor that delivered her.
And McInerney delivered all the other children.
Including me.
Yes,
Yes.
Bob
yes.
McInerney.
And then you moved back to Sydney.
Yeah.
And where did you buy your first house?
St Ives.
St Ives. I remember that house.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a new built house, far away from the eastern suburbs.
As you could get, we put the bridge between the eastern suburb crowd and us.
Yeah. And so, when did Mama and
Excuse me,
Yeah.
that's not quite right. We didn't. We went to Wahroonga, Maratta Avenue,
oh yeah, okay. And
Wolf
then-
Ada Street
Right.
in Wahroonga, but we were only leasing that.
Yeah. Then you bought the house in
Bought the
St
house.
Ives. Yeah. Okay. And so when did Mum reconcile with her mother?
Not long after that.
When you moved back.
Yeah, not long after that. I never. It took me years. I hadn't. And then one day we arrived at Wanella Road, Point Piper.
Which is where her
Yeah, and
parents lived.
Kim wouldn't get out of the car. She didn't want to go inside.
Right.
And she's crying, and I said, you've got to get out of the car.
Because you weren't going to go inside.
I wasn't going. in the
And
house.
Mum had already taken me in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she wouldn't get out of the car.
Yes.
And I said, you've got to get out of the car. And Jack Barrett, give him his due. He said, what's wrong? And I said, oh, she doesn't want to get out of the car. He said, well, come on. And finally she got out. He said, well, come on, aren't you coming in to have a drink?
Oh my gosh. So you would normally just sit in the car and
I would drive
wait
away
for them
and come
to...
back and pick them up later.
Oh my
In those days we didn't have mobile phones.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And so that was from there on you became the star son-in-law.
I was it. I was it. And Jack, on his 70th birthday party, he made a speech, and in the speech, we had reconciled, sort of in a way.
Yeah.
Not fully, it wasn't fully a reconciliation, but
Right.
it was. And he said, I've got to say this about Dumbrell, he's a stayer. He'll outstay the Ori.
There you go. So we can officially say that you and Mum eloped.
No,
No. Okay.
not eloped.
Didn't elope.
No,
Okay.
we went away and got married.
You went away and got married. Well, congratulations. You did it. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I, as one of their kids, did not find out about all that wonderful love story until we were all a little bit older. But I think that's awesome. Okay, so that was the courtship. Did Mum ever work, just briefly, the last question? So she was
No, she was an apprenticed hairdresser
yes,
at David Jones
before you were married.
before we were married
Yeah.
in the Elizabeth Arden's beauty salon
There
in
you
David,
go.
6th floor in David Jones, which was
Perfect.
the place to be.
Oh my God, that's perfect. I thought she worked for a judge too.
Yes, no, he was a barrister at the time,
Barrister.
but
She was
unfortunately
a secretary.
he was secretary.
Yeah.
And she used to get in the car at night with a bag with sheafs and sheafs of paper, getting them out with all the mistakes she made, and she'd just stick them in the bag and then start again and type the letter again.
Oh God! And then after that, she became a wife and mother of 6, and grandmother of many. So yeah, okay, that's really cool. Okay, so that section of our little interview is over, and we will continue on with another one after this.